Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the fourth part of What If Deku Fell in Love with Female Katsuki. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It was now the day of the sports festival. The class had all gotten up ready to go and were mostly in the commons eating breakfast. So do we have no classes whatsoever today? Hanta asked. No, we do not. Tenya answered from across the table. We have attendance not even in our classrooms before we go to the stadium, where the actual attendance is. Were you even paying attention when Aizawa-sensei told us on Friday? Kyoka looked at Hanta. Bruh, of course not. The tape user responded. What do you think I am? Responsible. This is why your grades are near the bottom of the class. The earphone user deadpanned. You are not wrong, ma'am. Hanta nodded. I am so excited, Mina shouted as she came out of the kitchen. We are going to be on TV, the pink girl squealed. I hope no one noticed how nervous I will be about that. Toru added. Hagakure. Ijiro looked at the girl. You are invisible, you know that, right? Body language will show it also, and we can see her clothes. Shihai pointed out. It doesn't help that they will probably watch our class the most. Hanta got up to get a water bottle. I mean, we had run-in with villains. Yeah, and some of us got really injured. Mashiro said from a couch by the TV. Or, Yano, Kyoka started. Quill actually killing one of the villains. I'm honestly surprised Takoyami and Dark Shadow didn't kill anyone. Mina admitted. I wish I did. Dark Shadow muttered. I am glad he only harmed them badly and not caused anyone to go on to the afterlife. Fumikage yawned, still half asleep. I think Katsumi blowing up that Namu thing is way more important, to be honest. Tsuyu spoke up. It was supposed to be able to beat All Might. That means she is as strong as a pro hero at this point. Or those villains at making Namus. Hanta offered. More is to hope the villains did than to lower the value of Katsumi's feat. I think Aizawa can tell you it was strong. Ibara said. I was there. It was a monster. By the way, where are those two? Itsuka noticed her best friend and that girl's boyfriend were somewhere else again. They were not with the class sometimes, and Mina is always the first to jump to conclusions. And now is when she is probably going to do that. I bet they are feeling each other up. Mina announced. Please don't say sinful things. Ibara frowned. That was barely sinful to what could have been said. Ijiro stated. Yeah, she could have said something about Hanta got cut off by Kyoka using her earphone to snap his jaw shut. We don't need to hear anything. Kyoka said blankly. Quill walked in from outside at that point. His inhaler in had, meaning it was just used. Hey, it's Big Red. Mashiro greeted his classmate as Quill sat at the couch on the other end. Hey, where were you this time? Ibara asked. I wasn't being the ruffian you think I am. Quill exhaled heavily as he leaned back on the couch. I was at the main building getting this thing fixed. He wiggled the inhaler in his hand. How did you break it? Momo asked. The two numbnuts of the class. He means us. Ijiro and Hanta said at the same time. We were thinking Yaorashi was coming down the stairs this morning and tried to jump scare him, but it was Quill. Hanta explained. He instantly activated all of his hairs and shredded the thing, and his clothes. Ijiro added. And I almost killed both of the shits. The quilled teen stated. Yeah, he didn't look happy. Hanta laughed. I apologize for not going down the stairs at the proper time. Inise apologized. Don't apologize to them for their stupidity. Quill sighed. We still don't know where the two class leaders are, and we are going soon. Momo pointed to that fact. Or Amain. Toru added. Haven't seen her. Outside. Quill answered. Batty is right outside. So we just don't know where the lovebirds are. Mina said. I suggest we look for clues. I suggest we not. Mashiro and Quill both said at the same time. They will show up. No way would Katsumi miss the festival. Itsuka stated. I really don't want to get up. Katsumi sighed from her spot right next to Izuku, leaning her head on his shoulder. The two of them were on the roof of their dorm building, having their breakfast up there to have a moment together alone before the festival, free of any disturbances. Are you saying you don't want to go to the sports festival and kick ass? Izuku asked. I want to kick ass, but you're really warm for a lazy ass. You said I was cold last night. Well, you were the numbnuts who wanted to be outside in the rain. I liked it. I know you do, numbnuts. You were still freezing. You wanted to hold hands with me. Are you saying you don't want to hold hands with me? Katsumi sat up and looked him in the eye. Your hands are surprisingly soft, so I enjoy it. Surprisingly soft. What does that mean? You make explosions. It can be assumed your hands are a little rough, added with your training also. I like that answer. Katsumi patted his head as she stood up. Okay, let's go win me a sports festival. There they are. Mina got everyone's attention as Izuku and Katsumi came down the stairs. We were just about to leave too. Hanta stated. Good thing we got here in time then. Katsumi said as she went for the front door. To kick people's ass I go. Guess that means we all go. Ijiro asked as the explosive blonde left. Yes. Izuku yawned as he went out the door as well. Time to go be on TV, Mina shouted happily. Quill silently got up to follow everyone. He was thinking about whether or not that bastard Akui Shiraishi would be watching. A bus had taken the kids to the stadium. On the bus, Shota took attendance and made sure the kids were aware of rules. Try to stay respectful and kind, Shota said at one point on the trip. I know some of you can be mouthy and colorful with your language. He was mostly looking at Katsumi, who had a cheeky grin. But at least don't go out of your way to cause problems. There goes my weekend plans, Hanta joked on the side to Aijiro. The classes will all be in their gym clothes. It would give an unfair advantage to you all in the hero course if you had your actual gear and suits. There will be a small bit of breathing time in between each event of the festival. What's the first event? Hanta asked. They're random, Katsumi answered. They don't even know until it happens. Nice. Quill liked the sound of the setup. What was it when you were a first-year Aizawa-sensei? Toru asked. I don't remember, the man replied. Once at the stadium, the class quickly got into their gym uniforms and were all in a tunnel waiting for the moment all the classes step onto the field. Ooh, I am so excited, Mina clapped her hands. We get to be on TV. Toru had equal excitement. Everyone is gonna be so cool. Inasa joined the excitement. You realize we all are at a school training to be heroes, right? TV was inevitable, Mashiro pointed out. He was excited too, but not on their level. Everyone make sure to do your best and not embarrass yourselves, Momo stated. Katsumi looked at Izuku next to her. That means no naps. It can't embarrass me if I don't care what people think. Izuku had his one working eye closed. The cyclopic teen hesitated, taking to wearing a black eye patch over his blinded right eye. I think Quill doesn't care either if he isn't wearing his gym shirt. Hanta pointed behind him to the redhead. Had tied his shirt around his waist to leave his upper body bare. Because I don't care, Quill responded without looking up from his spot, leaning against the wall looking at the ground, not even a little self-conscious about the scar. Toru looked at the large jagged scar on his, where he no longer had his hair for the time being. I have more important things to worry about than this, Quill replied. Edgy, I like it, Hanta commented. It is now time for those kids you all have been waiting to see show their stuff enter the field. Oh boy, we are going now, Toru squeaked out. Starting off with the kids who have fought villains. They showed those bad guys what's what, got back up and are ready to show they won't back down. It's Class 1A. The class out of the tunnel to the cheers of the crowd, in two lines with Izuku and Katsumi leading the two lines. I feel so hyped, Inasa shouted, feeding off of the energy of the stadium of people. I wouldn't have guessed, Ibara said flatly from next to him. They are tough, they got grit, they are gonna show they have just as much if not more skill as the others. It's Class 1B. Present Mike announced the next class, who were exiting from a similar tunnel on the other side of the large field from 1A. Present Mike announced the rest of the classes, but with just slightly less enthusiasm. The hero course classes, as much as it should be an equal situation, were always the main focus of the sports festival. This year it was even more noticeable when the focus was even more on Class 1A for surviving the attack at USJ, especially with the known fact that one of them, the identity being hidden from the public, killed a villain. Now everyone welcome the chief referee for the freshman stage this year. It's UA's very own super R-rated hero, Midnight. The woman in question hopped up onto the stage in front of all of the gathered students and struck one of her infamous provocative poses in her equally provocative hero suit. Everyone play fair, or I'll have to punish you. She winked into a camera and the student's direction. I feel like it is kinda wrong for her to be in charge of us and speak like that. Mashiro, can the first-year representative please come up here for an opening speech? The provocative ref asked as she looked at the kids, looking for her favorite pseudo-daughter. Katsumi, who was the first-year representative due to her score at the entrance exams, began to walk to the stage with a smug look on her face. Izuku was hoping she wouldn't say something too bad, but he knew she would definitely say something to get people worked up. The explosive blonde stepped up to the podium and looked at her class first, then the other students, and then back to Izuku, before speaking. I just want to say, Katsumi took a pause as she thought about what to say. I expect to win. She paused again to let that sink in, having a smirk as some people showed anger at her words. And you people should also. Don't let yourselves be extras. This isn't a place to be extras. Expect to win. Expect to go farther than you previously thought you could. Don't just expect it. Make it happen. Or else you all saying plus ultra look stupid. Don't be the thing that makes you trip. Be the thing that picks you back up and anyone else who stumbles also. If you don't do that, you are a shit hero in training if you ask me. Katsumi gained a warm smile when she saw Izuku's own. Go beyond your limits, plus ultra. The students actually shouted it with her, being driven to do their best now. The representative got pat on the head by Midnight before she hopped off of the stage to go back to her friends. And you four, Katsumi pointed at Itsuka, Ibara, Quill and Aela. I really want to fight you guys in the tournament. I admit I want to also. Itsuka grinned. I don't get anything special? Izuku asked. Oh, I know we are going to. Katsumi grabbed his hand because she enjoyed holding it. I'm going to see you in the finals. We might see each other before that in the tournament if we make it there. He pointed out. I got a feeling and I know it is right. I believe that. That was such a precious speech. Midnight spoke from the stage. Okay, let's now reveal what our first round will be. She motioned glamorously to a large screen over a portion of the stadium. The screen quickly flashed through a number of possible events for the first round before it settled on one word. Labyrinth. What's a labyrinth? An electric blonde from 1B asked. A maze from Greek mythology. Fumikage answered, eager to answer a mythological question. One that changes constantly, Aela added, showing that she also knew mythology. Oh sweet heavens, we haven't had this one in a while. Midnight grinned. Cementos, it is your turn to do it. Cementos, a teacher from general studies who looked like a person was sculpted into blocky-like being of cement, moved to the front of the stage he and Midnight were on. Children, don't move please. Why not move? Mina looked at Ochako, who shrugged. Everything below us is a large deposit of just cement for things like this. Inasa used his knowledge of UA to answer. Cementos is manipulating it to make the labyrinth right now. Inasa's claim was proven correct immediately when Cementos used his cement manipulating quirk to lower the cement platform all of the students had been standing on lower into the ground. We have a labyrinth built underneath the stadium. Midnight answered the question happily as well as explained to the audience what was happening. The goal is for you kiddies to be the fastest back up here. There are multiple exits. Also first 44 get to go on to the next round. This is neat, Shihai commented as all of the students still kept going lower and lower underground with the platform. How deep are they putting us? Toru asked. Does it bother anyone else that they closed the top? Ijiro pointed up. Well, it makes sense. Momo replied. Some of us like Amane have ways that we can just go straight up. I believe we have to exit the labyrinth as if trying to actually solve it. We stopped, Izuku stated as the platform did stop finally, with multiple tunnels leading away from them. Before anything else could happen, walls sprang up and separated the classes, moving them away from each other. Guess we don't have to worry about class fights here. Mashiro responded to the move. How do we know which way to take? Hanta asked. Mazes don't tell you the way out, numbnuts. Katsumi responded. I know that the elbowed looked offended. I mean, how do we quickly figure that out? Time to start. Midnight announced the beginning of the round. Question, Hanta said with a raised finger. Why not go as a whole class? 40 spots, 20 of us, seems like we can all get one. Yeah, but what if we all get there too late? Ijiro asked. Some of us will get spots and the others won't. I am saying we split into teams to solve this. Katsumi announced. Base the teams around people who know what they are doing. Quill seems like he knows what he is doing. Ibara pointed out the redhead who had walked a bit away from the other and was crouching and holding a rock. Watcha up to Big Red? Hanta asked. Shut up for a second. Quill responded before he skipped the rock up the hall. He was silent for a second. I can't tell. How can you even tell from a rock throw? Tenya asked. Live in the woods long enough you learn a thing about wind. Quill moved to another path and repeated his process, not having to tell anyone to be quiet this time. But apparently here nothing I know works. How about Gyro's quirk? Tenya suggested. On it, Kyoka jammed one of her earphone jacks into a wall near another tunnel. Everything was silent for a second while everyone let the girl find good tunnels. Got one, she announced after a minute. Nice, Ijiro commented. Midnight did say multiple exits. Ribbit, Suyu pointed out. So we are all going as a class now? Itsuka asked. Why not? We have Gyro giving us a quick way out. Mina stated. Whole class gets to go to the second event then. Only if we actually move and not stand here talking about it. Izuku spoke up. So get your asses moving, Katsumi added. Earphones lead the way. Got it. Kyoka nodded and began to run up her tunnel. We take our first right and keep going that way for a while. The whole class ran after Kyoka, following her directions. Think we might run into anyone? Hanta asked as they kept going. If we do, like half of us can shut them down immediately. Mina stated. Especially Aizawa. Someone is coming from our right. Izuku said abruptly, feeling quirks getting closer to them. Let's just cave in the tunnel. Katsumi suggested as she let a small explosion pop in her hand. No, just block their way for a bit. Izuku found the tunnel that the others would most likely come from and made a wall with his telekinetic energy as they all went past it. I can buy us a minute. Take this path. Kyoka went left at another fork in the tunnel after she listened to it for a second. How much farther do we have to go? Ochako asked. This path should take us there in a minute. Genuinely surprised at his Hanta got smacked over the head before he could finish that sentence. By Ijiro. Don't jinx us, man. Never say that. Gotcha. A few minutes later the class all stepped outside of a tunnel of the labyrinth. Hey cool, we made it. Hanta remarked. To any kid is getting out of the labyrinth. You have to get back to this stage in order to finish the event. Midnight indicated to the stage she was on. Race you guys there. Ijiro looked at his class. I love that idea, Ina-san nodded. Name one idea you hate. Shihai asked. Shoes made out of jeans. Mina said. Joe's. Toru added. Sounds like Jews. Hanta snorted. Half of the class has already went to the stage. Numbnuts, Katsumi yelled from the stage to get the talking kids to pay attention. Oh, look at that. Tori remarked. Let's go. Mina slid on her acid to get to the stage. Looks like the first 20 students have made it here, Midnight announced as the whole class was there. Hard to believe our stupidity didn't get in the way. Hanta commented. You're stupid. I am not. Katsumi argued. I will cry. Then do it. Wah, Hanta said flatly with a grin. You broke his heart. Airo laughed. So who actually got here first? Mina asked. I did, Inasa reported happily. He used his wind to fly here. Mashiro explained. Technically it was a long jump. Katsumi corrected. Here come more kiddies, Midnight announced as a portion of 1B kids got out of the labyrinth. I'm taking a nap till this is done, Izuku said to Katsumi as he closed his eye. No, stay awake, the blonde said as she looked at him, seeing him not open his eye. Izuku, wake up, the guy groaned in response as he opened his eye. Later, just a few minutes later, Midnight spoke again, stopped Izuku from trying to sneak a nap with her volume purposely loud. We now have all 44 kiddies for the next event. She took a second to pause as the screen flashed to show all 48 names lined up. We have all 20 sweet kids from 1A, as well as 1B, 2 kids from 1 degrees Celsius, 1 kitty from 1D, and 1 special kitty from 1H. She took a second again so people can sink information in. Everyone did so excitingly in the labyrinth. You were all so cute. Now you 44 get to go on to our next event. Which as she waved to the screen that actually was going through words at that point. The screen stopped on one word, and then a second word was cycled to match the first. Crystal Defense. Crystal Defense. Midnight read it aloud. For this you all get to split into teams of 4, at your own choosing, and will be defending a crystal from being broken by the other teams. The 4 teams left with crystals get to move on to our famous third and final event, the tournament. Do we get anything for breaking another crystal? Mina asked. The ability to show off your talent and know that you have a better shot at continuing on in the festival, Midnight answered. You all have 10 minutes while on this stage to make your teams of FCur however you want, while we make the next stage. Once Midnight was done talking, Cementos used his quirk to bring the rest of the students out of the labyrinth before making an area of various walls and platforms for the next event. Izuku didn't even get the chance to move before Katsumi dragged him towards Itsuka. Itsuka, we are a team, the explosive blonde announced. The martial artist nodded. Nice. She looked to Mashiro near her. Want to join us? I like that idea. The tailed teen nodded. We made a team fast. Izuku commented. So did the Dingalings. Katsumi pointed at Inasa, Hanta and Airo, who got Ibara to join them. Is anyone thinking about quirk alignment and skills or just friends? The emerald-eyed teen asked. Maybe they know each other well enough to pull it off. Mashiro offered. The rest of the class got into teams. One team consisted of Quill, Azula, Shoto, and Tenya. Another was made up of Fumikage, Shihai, Mina, and Toru. The last team of 1A had Tsuyu, Kyoka, Momo, and Achako. Minutes later the groups all had been made and were able to go into the arena, a block of 5 by 5 buildings being 1 floor each and being large, mostly open areas inside. The roofs all had the platforms and partial walls for rooftop fighting. This is your playground, kid, as Midnight grinned as she waved to the area. What's the WIFI? Hanta asked before Tsuyu whacked him over the head with her tongue to get him to be quiet. We give you kids a single minute to get a spot to defend your crystal before the event starts, the proctor announced. So get going. That one, Katsumi pointed at a building she decided on. It's not a corner, which is an obvious spot, and it isn't the direct middle. Let's go to it. Izuku used his telekinetic energy to lift the crystal. Okay, so what is our plan for the defense? Mashiro asked as Izuku set the crystal down under a platform with 3 walls blocking side attacks on the roof of their building. I am on defense, Izuku stated. My quirk is the best out of all of ours for guarding this thing. I can tell when people are close, shoot down destructive attacks, and use me power to block access to it. Okay, so Zuzu has defense. Katsumi agreed. So Sumi is on offense since her quirk is the most offensive of ours. Izuku responded to being called Zuzu. One of us to defend and attack with you guys. Mashiro offered roles for him and Itsuka. I call Ginger. Katsumi immediately picked Itsuka. So do we go after anyone specifically? Itsuka asked. First person I see, the explosive blonde stated as she looked off of their roof to look for a target. Do we target our own classmates also? No matter what, we gotta eventually. 4 teams get in and there are 5 spots left. Katsumi made a thinking expression for a second before she spoke. Let's just not go after 1A at first. Will they do the same though? Would you want to mess with the explosive girl and the hot guy with his overpowered mind powers? I don't think anyone else was thinking Aizawa is hot in their own train of thoughts, Itsuka stated. Well, he is. That eye patch. Just Katsumi turned red before she shook her head. Let's focus on fighting someone. Okay, Itsuka chuckled. What's the plan, fellas and lady? Hanta asked his team. I can use my wind to break a crystal, and Asa rushed out his idea. That works greatly. Airo nodded. Honestly, we can all play defense while you just make the crystals fly to us and break. Definitely. Hanta nodded. I like it. Inasa grinned. What do you think, Shizaki? The redhead of the team asked the vine-haired girl. I believe it will work in our favor. Let's do this. Inasa went to the edge of the building and was about to jump using his wings. Inasa, buddy, stop, Ichiro shouted. You can just stay here, and the vent hasn't started yet. The wind user gained a sheepish grin. My bad. I got excited. I believe that if any of us go and try to shatter another crystal, it should be Ida or Ami, Shoto said in his monotone voice to his team. Right, Tenya nodded. We both can cover more ground quickly, however I believe your ice can be more beneficial to shattering a crystal than an attack from me, Todoroki. Your reciprocal burst is powerful. The ice and fire team responded. I believe I would be better for defense with my ice. I can't do much running around compared to you two, so I will stay with Todoroki on defense if anything, Quill said as he sharpened his hairs to make sure they were good to go for later. Let's target one crystal specifically, Ami. Tenya looked at the winged girl. With your aerial attacks and my speed, we are sure to get one. Okay, Aela nodded as she looked over at a building she was sure had someone in it. Let's go to that one first for our search. I agree. A blonde teen from 1B looked at his team. Guys, 1A has been in the spotlight a bit too long for my liking. They appear to have gained arrogance from their one encounter with villains and being the center of attention. I believe, however, that this will be the time for 1B to shine. A teen who had an insect-like appearance nodded as a blade emerged from his skin on his arm. Let's kick their asses. Akui Shiraishi leaned back in his chair, a sinister grin on his face. Just watching the sports festival from that UA place had answered his question he has had for a few years. He was looking for Kuroda, who had gone missing, and here he was, the special teen right there near his apprentice. Akui had no concern of or even thoughts of her actually meaning something to him in the long run. Looks like Akui was wrong and she did have a use, finding Kuroda being the most useful thing she could have done for Akui. He can wait a while to actually go for Kuroda and just watch his growth for now. The stadium was quiet for all of a second before Hisashi spoke one word that set off the event. Begin. With that, half of the 4-4 kids all moved to break another team's crystal while the other half stayed nearby their own to defend it from destruction. Katsumi blasted off of her roof immediately and to another roof. How am I supposed to follow that? Itsuka asked as she just looked at the gap between the buildings, before seeing a platform made of Izuku's telekinetic energy be made. I can help with this one, Izuku said from his spot. The rest is too far and I might need that energy for other things. Let's go break things, Katsumi yelled eagerly as she let explosions go off in her hands. Don't go overboard, Izuku said as he gave Katsumi a look. The explosive blonde groaned. Fine, have fun. At that point she and Itsuka left earshot. So what are the chances of fighting our own class? Mashiro asked as he stretched his arms. One of the 1A teams will have to fight another 1A team regardless at the least here, but I doubt that all 4 teams will be 1A. The Cyclopic Emerald teen said as he began to use his powers to keep aware of any quirks. And those who have those quirks, getting close. Don't believe in our class. The tailed teen raised an eyebrow. I believe in them all, but to think 1B hasn't tried to learn how to get to our level is foolish. I think they will have plans to deal with some of us, and the more likely targets are you, me, Inasa, and Quill. Because we got hurt the most. Mashiro asked and received a nod. Got it. They can assume we won't be prepared to handle as much as the others because of how hurt we got. Even if Inasa is barely hurt and has his wind that just keeps everyone far away, unless they are you and can just erase his quirk, which is why we might not even see anybody. I think it is a 50% chance that I am avoided because of how I can just turn off quirks. I imagine the other half is just people who are good without their quirk and assume you rely on erasing their stuff to be effective. Someone is here. Izuku opened his one working eye and showing a look of confusion. 2 people below us. 2, Mashiro asked as he turned and faced the closest entrance to the roof in a fighting stance. Seems like other teams got the idea to split in half for defense and offense. I will start erasing their quirks when they get up close to the door, Izuku said. We both are decent enough to hold physical dominance in a battle. I will give a signal if I need to drop my quirk to not strain myself. Got it. We don't know what they will have, so I will need the warning. The door to the roof got kicked wide open and a silver-haired guy followed by another guy with black hair which was in a low braid. Both teens had skin-altering quirks that were instantly gone the second the door was knocked open as Izuku erased them. The silver-haired teen is, from what Izuku could guess, had a quirk that turned his skin to metal, which meant he had high defense in that case and might focus on offense as a default style. The other teen had his arms previously looking like they were covered in green scales. If Izuku had to guess on the scaled teen's quirk, it might be similar in terms of defense. What happened to my quirk? The silver-haired teen asked in surprise as he saw his quirk was gone. I erased it, Izuku said. He then spoke to Mashiro. You take the right one and I take the left. Got it. The tailed teen waited in his spot, preparing as the previously scaly teen realized Mashiro was his target and rushed him. Mashiro blocked a strike that was a first, showing that just like Izuku said, they would have dominance in a fight like this, the scaled teen having little proper form. Mashiro quickly took advantage and went on the defensive. So you were the one that Monoma said any of us would lose to. The silver-haired teen looked at Izuku. Guess that's the luck we get. Izuku didn't respond and instead stood in his new form that helped get past the lose of half of his vision. The silver teen took that as a sign of Izuku not being one to talk and he rushed at Izuku, who kept to the defensive as he studied the form of the silver teen, which wasn't much of a form in all honesty. The style the teen had was one of just full-on attacking with no visible defense at all. Izuku didn't comment on it out loud but was aware of how easy it would be at this point to defeat them, having spent a good portion of time sparring with Katsumi, who had great offense as well as defense. This was definitely an easy fight for him here. Mashiro swung his tail with force at an opening he saw in the lackluster style his opponent had and got a direct hit to the teen's left side. His previously scaled opponent was knocked into his side and Mashiro put himself in a stance over his opponent. Izuku knocked his own opponent to the ground and took a similar stance. Yield. The silver-haired teen gained an annoyed look. I won't. The cyclopic teen of 1A gained a flat look. This is not arrogance, but you are not capable of winning here. Won't know till I try. The silver-haired teen swung a leg to attempt to kick out Izuku's from under him, only to have Izuku cancel his erasing ability to make a wall of energy that the teen kicked with full force, cracking the wall but also hurting his foot. Oh, I erased their quirks again. The telekinetic teen looked at his tailed friend, who gave a nod. Katsumi dropped onto the ground right next to a building, with Itsuka following close behind. 2 people. The explosive blonde counted before she blew a hole through the wall, big enough to go through easily. Stealth? Itsuka asked, despite knowing it was not Katsumi's style. Instead of a response to her teammate, the explosive blonde shouted, Hey bozos, I want a fair and intense match. What Katsumi got as her response from the kids of 1B was a bright laser being shot at her, which she dodged by a hair. Sorry mademoiselle, but I heard you can be quite intense. A guy from 1B, who had on an odd belt from which his laser was shot. I'd prefer if you stayed over there. You're far range, so I assume the second I get in close you. Katsumi guessed. So the pony there must be the one who is better at closer engagements. She was referring to the girl close to the laser shooting boy who had large horns that went high above her head and noticeable hooves and horse-like legs below the knees, with no shoes due to there being actual hooves. How did you know my name? The pony-like girl gave a look of confusion. Huh? Katsumi looked more confused. Your name is Pony, Itsuka asked. Yeah, wait, you didn't know. Wait, your parents named you Pony? Bakugo asked. That's weird to name your kid after a physical altercation they have. You did the same though. Itsuka looked at her friend flatly. I was making a nickname based on her appearance like I do for you guys. The explosive blonde defended herself. It's not my fault they named her after her quirk. Kids shouldn't be named after their quirk anyways. Quill is named after his quirk, the ginger pointed out. That fact said in her head. Why doesn't he have a real name? The guy from 1B looked at Pony with an odd look. It's like they forgot we were about to fight. One explosive blast later and Katsumi had knocked the guy off his feet and held a knee onto his as he hit the ground, pinning him in place. No, I didn't forget. Aiyama, Pony yelled in surprise before Kendo rushed at her and enlarged her hand to grab the girl from 1B before she could react. So how do we do this without giving them a chance to fight back again? Itsuka looked at her blonde teammate. Katsumi looked up and saw the crystal that the duo were defending. I blast off of this guy and shatter it with a mean-ass roundhouse kick. Do I owe Itsuka released Pony when 2 horns, which had popped off of the girl's head, had struck her in the hand. I'm not letting you break the crystal. Pony kicked off from the ground and rushed at Katsumi. Katsumi grinned and began to ignite explosions in her feet, thankfully not actually aiming them at the boy below her. Only if you catch me. She blasted off towards the crystal, quickly maneuvering herself while midair. Katsumi spun into a kick and slammed her heel into the crystal with explosive force. Pony hadn't even gotten within a few meters of the girl before Katsumi had completely shattered the crystal in a single kick. Team Tetsu is eliminated. Present mic announced. Dang it, Pony skidded to a stop. That's us. Aiyama groaned from the ground, still jarred from Bakugo knocking him over. How do you make your horns float? Katsumi focused on the floating objects by Pony. Both guys trying to fight Izuku and Mashiro stopped and looked defeated upon Present Mike's first announcement of a beaten teen. That you? Izuku looked at the silver-haired teen. Yep, looks like we chose the wrong opponents completely. The silver-haired teen sighed. In the future you maybe have a good chance. It's just that your forms are choppy. Mashiro spoke. I can help with it if you don't mind. I'd like to avoid having my rear handed to me like that again, so after the festival I will definitely take you up on that offer. The other teen stood back up and held out a hand to the tailed teen. Name's Rin. Tetsu, the silver-haired teen introduced himself. I'm Mashiro and this is Aizawa. The tailed teen introduced them, thinking Izuku wouldn't actually speak. I guess we gotta leave the site now and go to the stands. Rin looked up at the stadium. Man, I really didn't think we'd be the first ones out though. Mashiro looked to his teammate while their former opponents left. So back to waiting for more opponents. Back to waiting. Izuku confirmed as he began to close his eye and sense any quirks that may get close. So Monoma, what's the plan? His furry teammate asked. If everyone is smart, and of course at UA, that must be the assumption. Then the teams split into duos for defense and offense. Only teams with absolutely amazing members would go solo in one of those two roles. Monoma started. We, however, can put all 4 of us on defense with a simple trick, and actively take down a few teams from 1A at the same time by splitting up. That's where I come in, I take it. A teen with a noticeable lack of lips and pale skin asked as he leaned on the crystal. Indeed, use your quirk to hide the crystal and we will have no need to defend it past that. Monoma nodded. The other teen nodded and began to touch the ground below him in the crystal, and the others watched as the ground began to behave almost like quicksand or a liquid. The teen sank below the ground and dragged the crystal with him before rising back up without the object. It buried a few meters down. No one except for us will be able to know I put it down there in enough time to do something. The 4th teen of the team made blades matching his lime green skin come out from his forearms. Let's get going then. Monoma gained a smile as he tapped the teen who could sink into the ground on the shoulder, activated his own quirk. I can go off on my own. My quirk is enough and Honuki should stick around here just in case our tactic is exposed. I recommend that you two go together. Shishida and Kamakiri, you are the more offensive duo, while I have speed on my side. Shishida is a beast anyways, so that's fine. Kamakiri had no issues. I'll refrain from going too far with my quirk, however. I don't want to become uncontrollable. Shishida spoke. Let's be efficient about this. You know what to expect and saw team layouts. Hit where you know you'll succeed. Honuki added. Happy hunting, Monoma said to his teammates as he sank into the ground to find a 1A team to attack. This way, Tenya shouted to Aela in the air as he used his quirk to jump with force from one building's roof to the 4th floor of it, right through a window. He had seen someone move past a window and knew that they were guarding a crystal for sure. Jumping through the window to get to the people would give him the element of surprise, and so he didn't really question it past that. Aela flew in the same window 2 seconds later, and the two saw that they were against 2 others. Who just dives in a window like that? A guy with electric yellow hair that had a black streak similar to lightning shouted. 1A really does have some characters, I guess. The other teen, a guy with brown messy hair and rounded eyes, commented. Out of the way. Aela made her hands ignite with her energy, still floating due to her wings. Sorry, pretty lady, but no can do. The blonde spoke as arcs of electricity began to dance around him. Don't focus on the fight, focus on the crystal. Tenya knew that the guys would get under Aela's skin and make her lose focus. You're faster. I'll keep the boys busy. Aela threw a blast at the blonde and it hit him in the face before he could react, knocking him off his feet. Or just knock them out like that. Tenya nodded and rushed in a curved path at the crystal. Before he could get to it, he ran into a wall, an invisible wall. Smacking into the unseen object, he fell through what he hit and looked up in confusion. A wall. I was still setting up the maze before you guys just jumped through a window. The brown-haired guy spoke. Name's Tsuburaba and I can make barriers that are barely visible to the eye. His teammate groaned from the ground as he sat up, a bruise on his cheek. Couldn't have put one in front of us first to avoid my getting whammed. I was trying to make that but ran out of time. Kaminari, Tsuburaba apologized. So we can't just blitz you, can we? Tenya was trying to see the walls and saw nothing. Aela raised the power to just one of her fists and punched to the right of her, shattering a barrier wall. They're weaker than I am. Kaminari, I think you should charge up quicker. Tsuburaba looked at the girl who began throwing balls of energy around the room, shattering the walls he had worked to set up. Yep, the lady's scary. Kaminari began to charge up even more electricity. Ada, just charge through and plan on breaking through them as you go. Aela wasn't going to want to see how much electricity that other kid had. On it, Tenya agreed with similar thoughts. He charged up his engines and began to run again. He ran through another wall but was prepared this time, only stumbling before continuing to run closer to the crystal. Team Tetsu is eliminated, present, Mike announced on the speakers as Aela also began to move, punching a wall as she walked towards the guys and tried to throw another energy blast at Kaminari. The attack was stopped by a last-second wall from Tsuburaba, and that was enough time for Kaminari to finish charging up. Here's enough to power 4 tasers. Kaminari pointed his fingers like a gun at Aela, the bigger threat in his eyes, and shot the lightning at her. The winged girl tried to defend herself with energy in her hand to catch the lightning. Instead, the attack passed her energy and struck her hard, sending arcs of electricity through her and making her fall over and seize up. Kaminari had picked the wrong target, not aware that there are no more walls between Tenya and the crystal, giving him the chance to get a decent enough boost to speed up and slam his foot into the object and break it in half with a powerful kick. Damn it, I shot the wrong person. Kaminari realized his mistake. Team Talkage is eliminated, present, Mike announced on the speakers. Tenya stood up and looked at the two. If you had more prep time, I think that would have been way tougher. Well, prep time is normally hard to use against a guy that dives in a 4th floor window, Subaraba commented. Can't really account for that. That and your teammate deciding to tase the hot goth girl. Tenya looked over to Aela, who wasn't spasming on the ground anymore. Will she be okay? Give it like 5 minutes. Kaminari shrugged. That's how long I was gonna wait to ask for a number. My guide Subaraba looked at his classmate. I doubt any girl would give you their number after you tased them. Have you tased a girl and asked for her number before? The electric teen asked. Have you ever had a girl give you her number before? His classmate shot back. Oh damn, he took a step back dramatically. No need to go for the kill, geez. Tenya just stood there, gaining a dumbfounded look as he watched them begin to go back and forth. Quill stood silently and unmoving as he waiting for something to happen, standing in the middle of the room near the crystal while Shota was over near a window. Neither teen spoke, because they felt no reason to speak. Quill's hair began to stand on edge as he could hear something. 2nd floor. They were on the 3rd and Quill knew for a fact he could hear someone down there. What do you recommend? Shoto had a simple plan for defense but figured he should see what Quill had thought of. The spiky-haired teen looked at the staircase down. As much as I love the idea of trying to fight them myself, your ice is far superior and better to use here. I can go down to the 3rd floor to stop them there. The ice quirk teen offered. Go for it. I'll stay here and twiddle my thumbs. Quill kept his gaze at the one staircase onto the floor while Shota went downstairs. Team Tetsu is eliminated, present mic announced over the speakers. Quill noted that was now 1 out of 7 teams that would be eliminated. All he and Todoroki had to do was make sure they outlived 6 more teams. Ice was heard shortly after, forming downstairs. Quill made a smirk as Todoroki a minute later came back upstairs. It was 2 people from 1B. Shoto stated, a girl who split in half, but I froze both halves, and a guy who I didn't see use his quirk. Well. Quill held up his hands. You split a girl in half. My ice didn't slice her. Her body split into segments and flew at me. I sent out a wave of ice to stop them. What sort of quirk lets you sit your body to pieces? Quill had a confused expression. Mine does. A blur smacked into Quill's side and sent him sliding to his left just a foot. Both guys looked to see a girl who was noticeably missing her legs and a hand, but floating in several pieces. Quill's face continued to become confused, processing the situation like an old computer. How does that work? My quirk is awesome. That's simple. The girl gave a toothy grin. Quill made all his exposed hair sharpen. Try touching me again. Those muscles. She gained a sly grin. Okay, she made her arm split into small pieces and shoot at Quill. He reacted quick enough to block 3 of them, a 4th hitting his left thigh with a loud thud. Hey, watch what you are trying to hit. I can only hit so much without getting stabbed, the girl argued. If you weren't acting like a tsundere right now, I'd have an easier time. What did you call me? He went back to being confused. You're being a tsundere, Yano. Hard and tough on the outside and all that. I beat you're a total softie on the inside. The girl joked. The quilled teen's expression went from confusion to deadpan. Couldn't be farther from it. Takage, I said to wait for me. A voice from the staircase made the 3 people on the 3rd floor turn to see the girl's partner. Sorry, Ibara, but I wanted to shake a leg. Takage replied cheekily. You don't have legs right now. Shoto pointed out. You froze them downstairs, you chilly hot guy. Takage pointed at Todoroki accusingly. Team Takage is eliminated, present mic announced, and made both of the 1B kids look confused. Takage voiced both of their confusions. Aw fudge, did someone break our stuff before we could actually at least touch someone else's? I guess we gotta go now then. Ibara sighed and made his way to go back down the stairs. Quill looked at Shoto. If every team happens to encounter just one other team, we might be safe, but I still doubt it. I agree. We should stay on alert and ready for anything. His teammate responded. As if in dramatic timing, hands burst from the ground below Quill and dragged the redhead down into the floor that behaved almost like a liquid at that point. Katsumi shot through a window in a wave of explosions and looked around as she flew across the building's interior. Seeing nothing during her spin, she blasted herself out a window and dropped down to the ground where Izuku was standing with a slightly amused expression. There's nothing anywhere in there. The explosive girl skidded to a stop next to her friend. I swear at the beginning of the match I saw a team go in there. Izuku hummed and thought. Maybe they were one of the eliminated ones then. 2 teams down, so there's that. Katsumi had kept count on the teams as they were eliminated. So far just 1B. Izuku really didn't want any 1A team to be eliminated, even though that's not possible with the setting of only 4 teams passing. I doubt it's gonna stay that way for long. The other bozos may have been watching us and planning for counters ever since USJ happened. Yeah, the news really didn't do some of you guys favors. Izuku knew that some of the people, especially Izuku's close friend group coincidentally enough, were all shown on the news and their quirks revealed as a result. So you think some may be targeted? Do you want to know my answer? Because knowing you, you'd drop our crystal hunt to go police our friends instead. Katsumi had only thought about it for a minute but knew someone was being targeted at the least. Since this is just a festival event and not a dangerous event, I suppose I probably shouldn't. But at the same time I have to know too. Then we focus on kicking more ass, Katsumi said with enthusiasm as she kicked a door and broke it off the hinges with her strength. Izuku looked at the girl for a moment and exhaled. I am so glad I haven't had to be on the other side of your attacks at this point. So many people who know about how it feels can testify that they do in fact hurt. The explosive-wielding girl grinned. Now let's go kick people in the teeth. Without another word, she began blasting through building and up the stairs to search for another team to fight. The martial artist on the ground floor just sighed. I can't move at speeds like that. She spoke to nothing as she began to pursue her energetic teammate. Katsumi flew up the stairs and on the 4th floor ran into 2 people. Upon seeing them, she groaned. You too. Back you go. Tenya looked at her in confusion. The guy was standing watch while Aela was groggy on the ground. Where's your loser's crystal? Bakugo was not just gonna leave when she was near a crystal. We're the attack team, idiot. Aela groaned as she tried standing up, her legs wobbly. Tenya made sure to be on standby to help her not fall over. So why are you here? Bakugo turned and saw a broken crystal she had failed to notice earlier. Oh, got someone. And I got tased. Aela cursed. Katsumi let out a laugh. You seriously got tased? Aela gained a dirty look. By an idiot. Shut up. At least you guys got your shit, I guess. No one team has been eliminated yet. Tenya stated. All of us have our situations handled. Don't jinx the class, you dip. Katsumi pointed at the guy. Jinxing isn't real. Tenya replied. Team Asui is eliminated. Present Mike announced a 1A team's elimination at that moment. Katsumi and Tenya just stared at each other for a moment. Tenya having an expression of well damn and Katsumi looking at her classmate with irritation. You got my girl Froggy eliminated, you jinxing dipshit, the class vice rep shouted. That was purely coincidental, the guy protested. You jinxed them. You don't mess with jinxes, Aela commented, siding with Katsumi. Now I gotta tell Tsu that you're a jackass, Katsumi added while still pointing at Tenya. At that point Tenya gained an expression similar to what Izuku would have half the time. He was mentally questioning how much better it'd be if he was just back at the dorms or just anywhere else. Izuku yawned as he looked at the other rooftops. Before speaking, those guys are completely stupid. Who? Mashiro looked up to Izuku, who was sitting on a raised platform. The cycloptic teen raised a hand to point to a roof on the complete other side of the event stage. On that roof was a tornado that raised up dust and made the entire top floor and roof virtually unseen. Inasa's team is doing perhaps the most risky but safe plan, and it's stupid. What exactly are they doing? The tailed teen couldn't really see that far away in detail, but assumed Izuku had. Just standing around, inside of what looks like just Inasa's winds. They're right in view where everyone can see them, but at the same time no one can easily get through that, and it's dumb. Mashiro began to laugh. They could possibly just pass the event without even involving themselves with the other teams then. Given their being so open would make others be wary of them. Izuku agreed. Quill was pulled through the ground to the floor below, falling against the ground with a thud as his aggressor stood nearby. You must be Quill, am I right? The guy asked. If you know who I am, then you know giving me a chance to get up is dumb as shit. Quill had gotten up and faced the guy, a blonde who had a smug grin that the 1A student was gonna enjoy wiping off. So that's a yes. I wanted to just have confirmation from you. What do you want? The crystal is up there. He raised his fists and got ready to move closer to the guy. I want to prove 1B is just as good as 1A by taking out someone from the spotlight. He explained. So go break a crystal instead of monologuing to me. I already know that some of 1A will have their crystals broken. I wanted to actually win a fight against one of the students who made headlines the most from USJ. The guy put a hand up to his. My name is Nito Monoma and I will beat you in a fight right here, Quill. The redhead looked at his opponent and grinned. Oh, bring it then. The teen got into his most familiar stance and made all his visible hair harden. With pleasure, Monoma made blades erupt from his forearms, these blades matching the color of his skin. I thought you dug through the ground. Quill wondered what the guy's quirk was. My quirk is not as straightforward as sharp hair. Monoma waited for Quill to move forward, waiting for the guy to approach to react. Moving quicker than his opponent anticipated, Quill rushed forward towards the kid from 1B and attempted to slam a fist into the guy's jaw. Monoma blocked the attempt by swinging his arm and attempting to slice at Quill's forearm with his bladed appendage. The blade got stopped by Quill's hair, but didn't stop the momentum from making the 1A student miss his mark, his fist going just past Monoma's head. Monoma quickly moved his other arm and touched Quill, just grazing the tips of several quills before pulling his arm back and moving away from Quill. I now understand the application of your quirk even more, Monoma said as he kept backing up and dodging Quill, who was pursuing him. It is more straightforward than I thought. Hair isn't that complicated. Quill managed to strike the guy in the collarbone. Surprisingly, a new blade burst through Monoma's uniform at that exact spot and tried to stab Quill, but his quills made it tough to actively touch the teen's skin. He pulled his arm back before it could actually be cut into, and swept his leg to knock the kid off balance. As Monoma fell to the ground, his blades retracted and he put his hands to the floor to catch himself, and surprisingly to Quill, he sank through the floor and disappeared from sight. Quill took several steps back and looked around. What kind of quirk do you have? If he had to assume, it looked like the damn guy had two quirks just like Todoroki and Izuku. Hands rise quickly from the ground and yanked Quill through the cement and down to the second floor. He fell to the floor but quickly rolled himself to a kneeling position before getting back up. It's more complicated than sharp hair. Monoma spoke as his whole hand began to rotate at the wrist like a drill. No shit, Quill responded as the other teen rushed forward and tried to strike him with the drill-like hand. Blocking the hand be hitting the firearm with a swipe of his own arm. He had his quills cut into the other teen and make him pull his arm back. I wasted a slot on your hair just to figure it out more. Kamakiri will be annoyed since yours isn't a good replacement. Monoma sank back below the ground. Quill didn't respond as he made distance from that spot again. What did the guy mean by slot? And his being a replacement? After a few seconds his mind put the puzzle together. You can replicate quirks, can't you? The quilled teen asked despite not being sure if the other guy can hear him or where he was. Observant, Monoma jumped up to try and pull Quill under the ground again, but the 1A student predicted his movements and defended himself, spinning on his heel to slug Monoma in the jaw. Caught off guard by the attack, Monoma stumbled backwards and had to fall onto and sink back into the ground to avoid Quill's follow-up attack. So that's a yes, Quill asked. Let me guess, based on touch, since you only commented on understanding my quirk after I clocked you. He didn't get a response, but the ground below him began to sink, and his feet down up to the ankles went through before he could react. Before he could step out of the spot, hands that were presumably Monoma's grabbed him and yanked him underneath, falling through the cement to the ground floor, hitting the ground with a thud. Quill quickly repeated himself to move to a kneeling position and hopping to his feet, facing Monoma who dropped several meters away. Why not just trap me in the floor? Quill questioned the obvious way to win not being used. Monoma made an open-handed pose as he began to speak. I said I wanted to beat you in a fight, didn't I? Just trapping you isn't a real win, but acceptance that using dear Honuki's quirk to restrain you is the only way to win. As much as cleverness and tactics are all the rage, I prefer the idea of beating one of you at your own game. Outright to show 1B is just as good if not better than 1A. Beating me at my own game. Quill smirked as he questioned the guy. I play dirty, so go for it. Team Asui is defeated. Both people stopped for a second when Present Mike announced the first 1A team to be eliminated. Looks like 1A isn't unbeatable, Monoma commented. That's 1-1B's two teams, Quill pointed out, trying to plan how to handle this guy and is using the ground the way he did. If the guy truly wanted to fight Quill, he possibly won't use that trick again since they're on the first floor. However, he was not gonna be stupid and just believe it was over. He said he replaced a guy's quirk with Quill's, but that was before he used the ground again. So he just had to figure out if it was the blades or that drilling quirk that was gone. Quill had to assume at this point it was 3 quirks that the guy had, since that's the total he has seen. Without a word, Monoma made his arm drill again and rushed at Quill. The 1A student blocked the strike with his forearm before raising his other arm to punch Monoma in. Before he could hit the guy, Monoma's hand stopped drilling. And when Quill hit the guy, he felt his fist get caught up where it hit the guy. Quill winced but followed through his punch, striking the guy in the bottom of his ribcage and blowing the air out of Monoma, before he quickly slugged the guy in the jaw with his uncut fist. Monoma fell to the side and touched the ground, making it soft and sinking into the cement to get breathing room. Quill looked at his fist and the cuts, realizing that the cuts were similar to what he left people with after introducing them to his namesake power. However, Monoma's cuts were noticeably smaller. You can't use 2 quirks at the same time, can you? Quill asked. You had to swap to use mine, which is why you stopped using that drill technique. Quill got no response and looked around at the floor and questioned where the hell that guy went, when he had a fist slam into his temple from above. Monoma, landing on the ground after dropping from the ceiling, quickly swapped back to drilling to strike Quill, who was dazed from the drop attack. The 1B student slammed his drilling hand right into Quill's scar and struck hard. Quill had to pull back and gasp for breath from the attack, his lung being damaged from that. Situational awareness is key, Monoma began. Don't be too busy looking at people below you to not see the guy above you. The teen rubbed his bleeding jaw, Quill's last attack having split the skin. Quill coughed hard and grinned. Good thing I enjoy striking from below. As he spoke, he moved into an uppercut, hitting the other teen's chin as he said the word below. Monoma was lifted off the ground by the attack, and through his wincing, used the quirk he had active to making his whisk spin fast and slam his feet into Quill's, into foot slamming into the scar. After the trade of blows, Quill had to take a step back and Monoma fell to the ground. Are you done yet? Quill coughed hard, ignoring the feeling of his lung getting worse. Team Fukudashi is eliminated. Present Mike announced what was the third 1B team to be eliminated. Monoma laughed as he turned to his side to get up, making sure his palms hit the ground. I will say that you do pack some power into your hits. However, I win the fight. He sank back into the ground. Quill raised his ground higher, needing to plan better now that the guy found his obvious weak spot and hit it a few times already. If the guy was smart or noticed it, he'd see that Quill had a similar scar on his back that was also an easy spot to take a hit at the guy in his injured lung. Quill had to assume this guy was planning the whole fight and was decent at tactics if he was capable of replicating quirks. It felt natural for someone of that power to study styles and such of quirks to plan against all kinds of quirks. Suddenly the ground below Quill turned soft and he began to sink. It was only an inch, but enough that the teen stopped focusing elsewhere and had his guard down when Monoma shot out of the ground. In a bare second's notice, Monoma switched quirks to the drill to hit Quill's scar with force, followed by his other fist striking the teen in the jaw. If rumors are right, your lung is in pain right now. I offer the chance to admit defeat. Quill scowled as he held his scarred in pain. His lung was definitely in pain and his stamina was now shot to hell. He wasn't about to accept any sort of defeat and immediately jumped with force towards Monoma, clearing the distance and hitting the guy across the jaw again. Monoma was caught off guard, not thinking Quill had enough strength to just jump out of the softened ground like that. After stumbling for a second, he used his second quirk again, spinning at the waist and twisting himself into a left hook that Quill ended up catching in his hand. Monoma used the quirk again on his wrist to twist his hand and yank Quill to the side. And the 1A student gained a strike to his scar again right as he returned the favor with a left hook of his own to Monoma's temple. Both teens fell over from the hits and got up in their own ways, Quill pushing himself up with a hop, and Monoma sinking back into the ground. You're an annoying shit. Quill coughed. How about not hiding in the ground? I needed some underhanded tactics to deal with your strength. It dwarfs mine. Monoma spoke from behind Quill, several meters back. Yay, no shit. I know that. Quill held his and groaned. That's why I am glad this fight is over. It's not over yet. Monoma responded right before a wave of ice quickly went over him and trapped him inside. Thanks, Todoroki. The redhead looked at his teammate who had came down the stairs while holding their crystal. I wondered what was taking so long and assumed they wanted a specific fight if they weren't coming back for the crystal. Shota looked at the frozen 1B student. Yeah, he wanted to knock down a pillar of the community and chose the least impactful, only to still lose. Quill leaned over while holding his. You're bleeding. I know. Let's deal with it later. Quill groaned as he took a pained breath, figuring his time was just about over. Katsumi, having left Tenya and Aela, decided to find the guy she had beef with for the past week, that sleepy-looking asshole who tried to target Izuku after USJ. She knew for a fact he was still in the damned event and was gonna kick his ass. Only 3 teams have been eliminated so far and they were from either 1A or 1B, so the team of extras were still around. Itsuka was left behind, and admittedly okay with it. Itsuka figured Katsumi could easily go it alone and be fine at this point. The explosive lead of 1A had seen 2 teams so far, both being teams from 1A, Ibara's group and Fumikid, who had their own fight going on that she decided to leave alone. If they couldn't handle their own defense, then they shouldn't be in the third event. Blasting to a new building, she slid in the front entranceway and saw half the team of people she knew were 1B just looking at her. One showing panic once she recognized who had just showed up. Neither were the jackass she wanted to fight, but were in the way regardless. I'm breaking that crystal and leaving in less than 10 seconds, Katsumi stated. Monoma told us how to counter you, the nervous girl on the other team responded, trying to appear tougher than her movements were implying. Well, Monoma can my ass. Katsumi decided to not test whether or not the two had a counter and to just follow her statement of breaking the crystal quickly. Blasting off of the ground with explosions she charged with 2% of one for all, she shot towards the crystal and slammed a 3% charged explosion, breaking it easily. Both members of 1B's team gained wide-eyed expressions at how quickly she did that before they could actively even try to counter. See a chumps, Katsumi spoke as she blasted off Tai find the purple head. She had Tai think real quickly over how many teams were left. Of 1A, she believed the only eliminated team was Tsuyu's, which had but someone from 1A had to be eliminated given the open slots to pass the event. 1B managed to lose 4 of their 5 teams. The random team not from the hero course was still around, meaning the jackass still needed his ass kicked. 2 more teams had to be eliminated before the event was over, and her window was therefore possibly small. Getting to a new building, she used explosions on her feet to propel herself through a window and check the 4th and highest floor. She saw nothing of interest and got to a window that she grabbed the edge of to flip herself to the 3rd floor. Not even letting her feet hit the floor, she used her quirk to move across the level of the building and out another window, mimicking her earlier method of changing floors to get to the 2nd floor. That was when she ran into a team. And not just any team, the exact one she was looking for. Yashi pointed to the guy from General Education who tried to threaten Izuku. I'm here to kick your ass. Really that spiteful over a statement? The guy asked with a half-bored tone. Before Katsumi could respond, another person spoke, a girl with pink dread-like hair and steampunk goggles on her head. Would you like to see my babies? Katsumi stepped focusing on the Kather guy to look at the other girl. You're what now? No way did the explosive girl think that another student just asked about her wanting to see their kid. The purple-haired kid looked annoyed at the change of focus. He tried to speak again but was cut off. My babies, the pink-haired girl pulled a pair of metal boots that looked close to, but not yet, done with whatever they were meant to do. The vice rep of 1A gained a dumbfounded expression when she realized what the term babies meant here. This ain't a damn garage sale. But my babies are ultra cool, the girl responded. Team Takoyami is eliminated, present mic announced. Katsumi stopped for a second. Damn, that means I should just beat you up later. I'm not wasting their time to smack you guys if it costs someone their spots. Without another word, she quickly pushed her use of One for All to 4% and blasted past the entire team to strike the crystal, slamming a fist that had 5% of One for All charged into the crystal and popping an explosion. She shattered the thing and ended the second event of the sports festival. Team Shinso is eliminated. The second event is now over, present mic announced the end. I'm kicking your ass some other time, you insomniac looking ass. Katsumi pointed at the guy she really couldn't fight anymore without getting into trouble. Before she could hear any kind of response, she blasted off to find her team. She didn't even really look at my babies. The pink-haired girl snapped her fingers. Shinso looked at the shattered crystal and began to hate how close he was to getting to the third event, only to lose because some hot had gotten in the way. We did it, Inasa shouted as the winning groups convened at the stage as the now empty second events arena was being removed. Monoma had been unfrozen and the teen somehow still looked smug despite not coming out a winner in the fight he sought out. We did it, he says. Mashiro sighed. We saw you guys just walked up behind a tornado. It worked and we figured sitting put and letting y'all fight would let us save our energy for the next stuff. Hanta explained. I would have napped if I knew Katsumi or Mom wouldn't have yelled at me. Izuku said to show he wasn't against their idea, just jealous of being able to do nothing. Damn right I would have said something. Katsumi poked the class rep. No sleeping in class. What even eliminated you guys? Airo looked at Fumikage. We got caught by surprise by two of them from 1B. The one with blades proved dangerous and took me focus completely when the other managed to break our crystal. A neat guy with a onomatopoeia power broke our crystal. Suyu added what happened to her team. Wasn't expecting his words to literally materialize and do the action of the words. Ribbit. No, Ada got you eliminated. Katsumi spoke to the frog girl while pointing at Tenya. Tenya sighed. I didn't cause their elimination. You jinxed them, you turd, the explosive girl accused. He did jinx them. Aela agreed and Tenya sighed again. Jinxes aren't, Hanta tried to say, but Kyoka whacked him over his head. Yes they are. Katsumi pointed at him. Jinxes are very real. Quill agreed. No they. Mashiro stopped when Katsumi and Aela both looked at him. Now that we have our winning kiddies, we will announce the bracket of the tournament before a short break. Midnight spoke to the audience. The first round of matches will be... Wait, Quill held up his right hand, keeping his left on his scar to try to lower the pain. Once Midnight stopped to look at him, he spoke again. I am dropping out. Before Midnight could even comment, members of 1A did, all at the same time. What? Katsumi and Aela shouted. Have you lost passion for this awesome event? Inasa asked in confusion. But you got to the third event, Tenya reacted with shock. Yeah, I don't care. Quill held back a cough. The metal in my lung is irritating me and I am not pushing for this. I'm dropping out before number 13 gives me another lecture. In the teachers section of the stadium seats, the named teacher beamed at the teen, being more serious about his health. Are you absolutely sure, Quill? Midnight asked. She was going to pull him out personally if his coughing got worse, but was surprised that the kid she heard was self-destructive in this aspect was instead opting out on his own. It's just a festival, I'm out. The teen responded flatly. Where's the toughness you had at USJ, you hedgehog? Katsumi yelled at him. I ripped it out with my lung. The so-called hedgehog replied while giving Katsumi a bored look. Midnight blinked before resuming her duties as the announcer. With the dropout of Quill, a member of the last team to be eliminated will now get to go on to the third event. Give us just a minute while the kiddos discuss who gets the spot. In the field where the other teams were standing, Shinso had wide eyes and instantly took his shot. Turning to his team member, he spoke. Hatsum, the gadget-holding girl, turned to him. Yeah, he had an internal grin as his quirk activated. Say nothing if I can be the one to go on. The girl had a blank look as she stared at him. The other two members of the squad didn't even try to voice wanting to go on just because they were afraid of going against Katsumi. Shinso turned to Midnight. She thinks so, and these two haven't said their own interest. He knew they wouldn't. The intimidating nature of the vice rep of 1A working in his favor. I guess that means Hitoshi Shinso is now in the third event, Midnight announced. And now we can show the first round of matches. She waved her hand to the big screen and the kids saw all 16 of their names appear. Everyone looked at their opponents and beginning to plan ahead. Round 1 matches. Izuku Aizawa vs Nito Monoma. Aela Amane vs Hitoshi Shinso. Inasayarashi vs Ijiro Kirishima. Hanta Siro vs Jiroda Shishida. Shoto Todoroki vs Ibara Shizaki. Juzo Honuki vs Tenya Ida. Itsuka Kendo vs Ajiro Mashiro. Katsumi Bakugo vs Togaru Kamakiri. Katsumi kept looking at the board, a huge grin appearing on her face as she realized the placements. She looked over to Izuku next to her. I will be seeing you in the finals, she pointed at the boy and declared. Izuku turned to her and showed his own enthusiastic smile. I'll see you there. Aela looked at Shinso and visibly scowled. Her going against him meant that she could have gone against Quill, who she actually wanted to show her progress to. Her scowl got worse and then noticed by Shinso, who gave an apathetic look back. It seems the first match is the leaders of both classes, Monoma said loudly and dramatically as he turned to Izuku. Head-to-head showed which class has the better leader. Izuku had a bored and irritated look. I don't care for your theatrics. You lost to Quill, Todoroki commented as he looked at Monoma. Aizawa will beat you as well. What the icy pop said, Katsumi added. My efforts already defeated one of you, even if it is a technical post-mortem. Monoma began. Wait, you add up Quill? Bakugo asked with disbelief. He was the one fighting Quill when I showed up, Todoroki stated. This twig-looking guy. Katsumi pointed at Monoma while looking at Todoroki like he was stupid for suggesting it. Quill, the teen of the discussion, finally added to it. He caught me by surprise. That is one way to put it. Monoma grinned at the redhead. Well, we get a break, so I shall leave the drama here to get nachos, Hanta said louder than necessary to get his classmates to use their break for something other than drama. With that, the other kids began to filter off before their intermission was over. As he tried walking away for the clinic, Quill was cut off by Aela and Katsumi, who had also dragged Izuku along. Quill, are you okay? The bat-winged girl asked. I'm as fine as I can be. He opted to not just walk past her. I can't believe you dropped out, you wimp. Katsumi said flatly. You rip your lung apart and try doing stuff with half the staff of the school up your ass about your health. Still, you could have gone until someone actually said something. I did. Quill had a flat expression. I said something. Go get some rest. Izuku spoke up, hoping his statement would make the girl next to him not pester the guy with poor health for looking after it. The quilled teen nodded and showed a smile. And you three knocked them on their asses. He began to walk again, pressing his fist lightly against Aela's arm as he did. You didn't even ask him what the dramatic twink could do. Katsumi looked at Izuku after the redhead walked away. Meh. Izuku shrugged and walked away toward the stands. Don't Memi, I don't want you to clown yourself on the stage because you don't want to do anything. Katsumi began to follow after him. Izuku gained a smile she couldn't see, just because he knew how she would respond to what he said next. Meh. Izuku, in between the second and third events of the sports festival, those who didn't get to move on to the tournament were given the opportunity to engage in activities on the field. During that time, the 16 competitors in the tournament were either allowed to eat or plan for their matches. Instead of either of those things, the top student who was recommended to the school and in the tournament, Izuku, was taking a nap, his head on his arms and at a table where some of the kids in the third event and 1A were eating. So how are we going about these matches? Ijiro asked the others. What do you mean? Ibara asked as she poked at a salad. Well, we all know that pro heroes are watching, seeing which of us may be someone they would want to recruit with internships. So naturally we want to do our best. But some of our best is also gonna easily tap out others. Ijiro continued. You mean how this whole thing has an out-of-bounds rule and Wendy here can just throw people outside the ring the second the matches start? Katsumi pointed her fork at Inasa as she spoke. Yeah, I don't see getting hard being viable against tornado summoning in an out-of-bounds equals elimination type match. Hanta remembered that Ijiro was going against Inasa first, meaning he very easily could be eliminated within 10 seconds. Please rephrase that. Tenya looked at Hanta. What? Getting hard? Hanta squinted at his classmate. Nah, I meant how his quirk works, you perv. I know what he means though. We all worked our butts off to get here and some of us can easily just knock each other out in 5 seconds. The others wouldn't be allowed to show their stuff for internship offers that way. Tenya ignored what Hanta just said. Like Aizawa just shutting down people's quirks so no one can actively see us use them. Mashiro pointed out. So let's agree that some of us should hold back to let others actually be able to show off also. Katsumi suggested. This works out for her because Katsumi knew she was gonna have to hold back at times anyways. No way was she gonna just go full force with all she can use of one for all on someone like Hanta or Mashiro. No offense to them, but she knew it put her in way too high of a spot for them to compete with. You are actually willing to hold back? Aela asked with disbelief. I'm not always wanting to kick someone's teeth in, contrary to popular belief. Katsumi responded. I just agree that maybe you guys want to be able to not look weak and I know I can speed blitz half of you. I'd like to think I can last 12 seconds. Hanta commented. 7. Quill commented. I'll take it. Hanta nodded. Wait, so are you holding back in each match? Itsuka asked. Nah, screw the 1B guys or those of you I know can handle it. Katsumi wasn't gonna play completely nice after all. She also wanted to show off. Seems kinda unfair to the 1B peeps if we are knowingly going easier on each other and not them. Ajiro commented. What, so now you think you want to take back your thing about some of us holding back on each other? Hanta asked. It's deceitful to do such a thing. Ibara spoke. I think we all have worked hard to get here, so all of us should do our best and not hold back. Doing otherwise would be an insult and disrespectful to each other. Valid take. Hanta nodded. I believe that is what we should do. Shoto agreed. It is called Plus Ultra after all. To not give each other the chance, and ourselves, to go beyond would be wrong. Mashiro added. So we are in agreement then that we can kick each other's asses and it will be respectful. Katsumi asked. For the lack of a better wording. Yes, I agree. Tenya nodded. So no being lazy, Zuzu. Katsumi patted his head just hard enough to try to wake him up. The sleeping teen responded with a groan. Soon arrived the time for the first match, Izuku's against Nito Monoma's. The field had been emptied and Cementos created a large flat stage for the matches. Izuku stood in a tunnel and across the field below the opposite stands stood Monoma in his own tunnel. Both teens waited for the speaker, present mic, to start announcing the event. Ladies and gentlemen, Izuku winced as his godfather's loud voice played over the speakers. It is now time for the believed and most hyped stage of the sports festival to begin. For our first match we have the bout between class leaders. Izuku was beginning to wonder if his Yashi was going to yell every match out, or was just overexcited since it was Izuku. On one side we have the kid who stood against a monster and didn't back down, the top student of the first year's recommendation course in Class 1A's revered leader, Izuku Aizawa. Izuku began to walk out of the tunnel, visibly showing a wince as the stadium got loud from people showing excitement at seeing him. He heard some people from his class above everyone else, and immediately saw his mom be loud in the stands as well. He had forgotten his mom had gotten a ticket because she was both a mother to a hero course student and also a wife to a faculty member. Seeing her and Katsumi made him smile instead of look annoyed at how loud it was. On the other side, his competition is the tactical mind who took down one of the toughest members of 1A, the clever leader of 1B. Nito Monoma Hazashi introduced Nito, who walked out of his tunnel and waved to the crowd with a grin as he walked to the stage. Once to the stage, and just in front of Izuku in the center, Monoma spoke. Let the best man win. He held out his hand for Izuku to shake. 1A's leader nodded and took Monoma's hand. Let the best man win. Now you two boys know the rules. Play nicely. If you leave the stage you are eliminated, and if I think it is a clear-cut case, I can call the match if need be. Midnight said from a higher platform near two teens. Got it. Izuku showed his understanding as he moved to his position before the match, feeling Monoma's quirk do something as the two walked away from each other. Understood. Nito grinned as he stood in his marked spot, waiting like his opponent for the match to begin. Begin. Hazashi shouted the announcement of the match beginning. For a moment, the two boys did nothing. They stood there and faced each other. The viewers got confused and this was voiced by Hazashi. Ano, I said begin right. The man asked, you erased my quirk. Izuku stated flatly as he looked at Monoma. He had planned on doing the same thing to his opponent before whatever activity had happened earlier could do anything that matters. However, he was too late. So this is the power so highly spoken of by 1A and the staff of UA. Monoma asked as he felt the quirk, using it on Izuku just the same as Izuku tried using it on him. I can see why it is as held up as it is. Your own quirk allowed you to copy mine. Izuku quickly deduced. When we shook hands, that is correct. Nito clapped. My quirk may not be as outright powerful as yours. Copying is far from as a standout as outright negation is, but it is something that with good timing and planning I can execute plans flawlessly. Had you been off by half a second I would have your quirk in more of a chokehold than the other way around. Izuku stated. He wasn't going to focus on his telekinetic half for this match. If Monoma had even half of his telekinetic powers, it was absolutely necessary to be ready to shut down the other guy's copied quirk the second he tried to do anything with it. As of that moment, the two were in an essential game of chicken to see who made the next move, with both knowing that erasing the opportunity of the other from using Izuku's telekinetic power was vital to winning. All plans use a bit of luck. Nito agreed that he was half a second from his plan being a bust. However, now that he had Izuku's quirk held down himself, there was no way anything other than negation being used quirk-wise. Now he just had to overpower Izuku physically and the match was his. Punch him in the face already. Katsumi was heard yelling impatiently from the stands. Izuku groaned and looked at Nito. You heard the lady. Let's see if you are like the rumors and more than just your quirk. Nito held up his arms. Without another word, Izuku rushed forward, running straight at Monoma. Izuku immediately opened with a left hook, which was blocked by a forearm from Monoma. Izuku blocked the counter of Monoma's own left hook, something he barely saw given it was his blind side, before raising up his leg and kneeing the blonde. Izuku watched Monoma stagger backwards and pursued the teen to give a left-handed palm strike to the blondes. Nito almost fell over but dropped on purpose to keep his composure, rolling and trying to sweep Izuku's legs. The cycloptic teen of 1A jumped over the attack and dropped down close enough to strike Nito in the jaw. Monoma dropped his hold on Izuku's quirk and quickly used an instantly made wall of energy to push the teen away. Izuku used his freed quirk to erase Nito's, destroying the wall that threw him back several meters. I knew you had experience in non-quirk-related combat. Nito groaned slightly as he rubbed his jaw and stood up. However, I didn't expect that much strength behind your punches. I'm stronger than I let on, Izuku responded. Clearly, Nito gauged the situation. Izuku now having the use of negation on his side wasn't necessarily fun. At any moment, the true user of the telekinetic quirk could just swap off of negation and throw a psychic attack. As if reading his mind, Izuku dropped the erasure half of his quirk and quickly threw a blast of energy from his hand right at Nito. The teen erased Izuku's quirk and expected the energy to fizzle out just like his wall had done. But instead the ball continued to live and smacked right into the 1B student's face and threw him back a meter and onto his back. The negating hold he had on Izuku's quirk was erased, and Izuku used that moment to cancel out Monoma's ability to use the quirks at his disposal again. How did that not go away? Nito forced himself to a sitting position to yell at Izuku. I only create the sparks and throw it. Izuku shrugged to annoy his opponent. I knew I shouldn't have tried relying on your quirk to defeat you and not expect some twists. Izuku quickly thought about his situation and looked at Monoma. Gaining a plan, he rushed forward once again and quickly threw another ball of energy at his opponent. Nito trying and failing to cancel out Izuku's quirk before he released the attack. The attack smacked into Monoma once again, and made the teen lose his grip on negating Izuku's quirk, which was made worse by Izuku throwing a fist charged by the energy into Monoma's jaw and throwing him backwards. The teen skidded against the ground, and before he could react to his situation, Izuku made a wall of energy and used it to begin pushing his opponent at a fast speed from the stage. Before Monoma was pushed completely off the stage, he used the copy of Izuku's quirk to negate the original version and tried to get up to a standing position. He wasn't completely up before Izuku, who had pursued the whole time his wall was pushing Monoma, slammed a shoulder into the teen from 1B and knocked him closer to the edge. Less than a meter from the edge, Monoma released his negation and threw a wall of energy at Izuku, who mimicked the attack and threw his own energy wall and made it collide with Nito's. Both walls kept trying to push each other, and both guys looked at each other while putting all their effort into overpowering the mental power of the other. A battle of wills now, Nito asked as he saw what these walls could represent. No, Izuku responded as whips of his telekinetic energy appeared from the ground off the stage behind Nito, and grabbed the teen by the wrists, ankles, and his waist. Caught off guard by the surprise attack, the student from 1B had no time to attempt another move before he was yanked off the stage and effectively bound to the ground out of bounds. Monoma is out of the ring, Midnight announced through her mic. Aizawa goes on to the second round. The crowd began to cheer, but Izuku ignored any sort of reaction to them to instead use the bindings on Nito to have him stand upright. Nito looked at the telekinetic bindings as they released him and looked back at the stage, mentally going over the outcome. Never thought I'd have to go against my own quirk. The leader of 1A spoke. Was interesting. Thanks for the chance. The 1B student looked surprised. Thanks. He brushed off his shoulder and looked at Izuku, thinking the kid was on now. He couldn't say anything else because by the time he thought of something to say, Izuku had already walked away. Walking out of another entrance, Izuku walked into the stands where his class was seated. You took too long, was the first comment the teen heard as he got close to the others, from Katsumi. You could have beaten his ass quicker. Meh, Izuku replied as he plopped into the seat next to hers. I did it reasonably fast. That was so slow I could go faster, the girl claimed. I can beat my idiot in less than 5 seconds. I would like to see you do that. The boy replied. I will. Then you will owe me a training match as a reward. Izuku made half a sigh before he spoke. You're doing this because I keep saying meh, aren't you? Meh. Katsumi stuck her tongue out at him. Aela had a neutral expression as she stepped onto the stage for her match. She wasn't nervous about her match at all, given that it was that skinny-looking guy from general education. After meeting Izuku, she decided to be wary of guys who looked tired, but that guy being in general education and not the hero course made her firmly believe he didn't have something stupidly broken like Izuku's quirk. Her opponent had an annoyingly tired look as he stared at Aela waiting for the match. He was analyzing her and figuring out how to handle the match. It was quiet on the stage before Present Mike began to speak, hyping up the crowd for another match. Aela heard none of it, however, because Shinso began to speak just before the match began. You were in the zone where that guy who quit murdered a guy, right? He asked in a lazy tone. At least I assume it was him. Quitting after having pressure put on him for being a killer seems meek if he was willing to kill in the first place. He shouldn't be allowed at this school. Heck, he should be in jail. No one but Aela heard him, thanks to their being on a stage and his Ashi's speaking over the speakers. Begin. Present Mike announced the match beginning, his announcement overlapping with the end of Shinso's statements. What did you say? Aela snapped at the bastard. She was going to pound the face of into the ground. As she tried to move forward, she froze in her spot, gaining a blank expression. Shinso grinned. I won. Everyone in the crowd got confused. The girl went from angrily stomping towards him to standing still. What the hell? Fight him. Katsumi didn't understand the girl not smacking the shit out of that dumbass for whatever he said to tick Aela off. Izuku was silent, observing the match and trying to figure out what happened. Of course he knew it was a quirk, but what was the trigger? It must be nice. Shinso looked at the girl he had frozen, being blessed with a good quirk. Now, turn around and walk off the stage. To everyone's shock, Aela turned around and began to walk towards the edge. She held the blank expression the whole time and didn't show any reaction. The first person to speak was Midnight when Aela took a step off the stage. Amine has stepped out of bounds. Shinso moves on to the next round. At that second, Aela stopped having robotic movements and the blank expression, gaining one of confusion as she was in a different position from what she last saw. What just happened? The girl looked around. That's what happens when you are too quick to think you are better than others. You and your blessed quirk and easy life have had it too easy and you were easily exploited for it. Shinso had a smug expression as he spoke. Instead of her anger being the first thing to react, the girl gained a hurt expression at what he said. Instead of saying anything, the girl turned to leave, disappearing into the tunnel she had come from for the match. What did that loser say? Katsumi asked as Izuku still silently stared at Shinso. He still contemplated the quirk that the guy used. He had a few guesses, but those only mattered as theories until he had to go against the guy. Shinso looked up at the stands, towards Izuku, and had an equally analytical look as he tried to plan how to handle his opponent. As the next two students stepped to the stage, Airo stretched his arms. Yashi, the redhead, said as he held his hand out, meeting Inasa in the middle of the stage. I absolutely forbid you from not going all out here, my guy. We gotta show our manliness at its peak. The wind user took his classmate's hand. I'll follow that order. The two nodded and moved back to their spots before the match would start. Oh, how I love your youthful energy, Midnight clapped. Sus. Hanta in the crowd leaned over to Mashiro, the guy next to him. Ready. As Yashi spoke over the speaker and both teens nodded. Kirishima pounding his fists together to hype himself up. Begin. Both teens instantly reacted. Kirishima used his quirk to harden himself and rush forward at Inasa, who began to use his quirk to create a whirlwind around him. My all-out will throw you out of the ring in a second, Inasa stated, more as a warning and not to brag. Then I better get to you before that happens, Airo claimed as he tried to get through the winds that picked up. Inasa took that as a sign to actually go full force, and motioned with his arms to quickly pick up the speed of his whirlwind. Airo slammed a hardened foot into the ground, having removed his shoes for this reason, and embedded it into the cement enough to prevent himself from flying off at that speed. Let's do this. He moved his other foot forward and slammed it into the pavement as hard as he could. The wind user grinned as he saw his classmates' plan. That's so clever. He got so pumped he began to pick up the speed even faster. At that point the winds had become too strong, and Aijiro's half-baked idea no longer was an option as he was pulled from the ground and sent flying through the whirlwinds and slammed into the wall of the stadium. Everyone was silent as Inasa stopped his winds, and the crowd looked at Airo to see if the kid was okay. He had slammed through the wall almost like a cartoon, leaving an Airo-shaped hole in the wall. The teen stepped out of it, stumbling at first, and have a thumbs up. That was sick, the teen exclaimed. He's lucky he had that quirk. Midnight sighed, actually worried for a second that the kid had become a stain on the wall. She shook her head with a small laugh and turned to announce the outcome. Kirishima was sent out of bounds. Yashi moves on to the next round. Inasa had quickly moved to his friend. Are you okay? Oh yeah, little dizzy, but I'm good. As if proving his statement about dizziness right. Teen fell over and began to laugh. Yay, I am not walking straight for a minute. Inasa held out his hand. Let me help you up. The redhead nodded and took the hand. I really shouldn't have bet on that plan. Nonsense, it was cool. You think everything is cool. Airo laughed. Hanta had an excited grin as he left the tunnel to have his match. To say he was hyped up would be putting it lightly. He looked at his furry opponent and raised his hand up for a fist bump. Let's make this fun, my guy. The teen spoke and Jiroda raised his hand to go for a shake before realizing the gesture Hanta's was in. Instead of letting it look awkward, he swapped his hand to meet the fist bump. I will treat this with respect. Good luck, the 1B student replied. Both teens moved to their positions and got ready for the match. Ready. As Yashi spoke over the speaker and both teens nodded. Jiroda bringing his hands together in front of himself and Hanta stretching his arms backwards. Begin. The first of the two to react was Hanta, throwing his arms forward and launching lines of tape at Jiroda. He ensnared the furry student and jerked his arms to begin throwing Jiroda towards the end of the stage. Jiroda began to use his own quirk, growing a few inches in height and his appearance becoming less reformed and more beastly. I won't lose that easily. He flexed his arms and ripped through the tape, grabbing a strand to yank Hanta towards himself. Well, Hanta wasn't expecting to get thrown so forcibly across half the stage, but regained himself quickly. He cut off the tape Jiroda held in his hand and quickly began to throw out more lines of tape to restrict his opponent's movement. Obviously, he couldn't just keep to long strands, so he would only shoot out bursts to make sure the guy had no leverage against him. Jiroda used his strength to try to rip out of the bindings thrown at him, but too many more would replace the ones he tore off, leaving the teen little option other than to use his quirk more. He began to look even more animalistic and tried to charge Hanta, one arm bound to his torso still. Hanta showed surprisingly agility as he dodged Jiroda, twisting his body mid-jump to shoot a line of tape at the beast of a teen to swing himself around Jiroda with. He released the tape as Jiroda tried to grab it again, launching more to use to keep moving himself around the teen to stay out of his way. The tape-using teen had a smile as he kept up this tactic, finding it fun to do despite a furry Hulk trying to definitely slap him goofy. He needed to bind the dude up like an AT-AT Walker from Star Wars and knock the dude over for the most likely way to win this. Jiroda, by focusing on patterns, reached forward and managed to grab Hanta by the ankle as the teen tried to maneuver himself around. The beastly teen swung his opponent by the limb he held and launched the 1A student out of bounds. Hanta reacted to his flying through the air by twisting his body and launching streams of tape at the ring, yanking himself back onto the stage without touching the ground outside of it. Am I still in? The tape-using teen looked at Midnight. You were thrown out of bounds, Jiroda pointed out as he lessened the use of his quirk. Yeah, but I didn't touch the ground. Hanta pointed at the ground. I got back here without touching it. Midnight thought for a second. I'll allow it. The match continues. Jiroda nodded. I accept that. You did react well. He began to use his quirk again. Hanta nodded. Same to you, big guy. The 1A student launched more tape at his opponent, planning to rebind him. He ensnared the teen who wasn't at the same level of his beastly quirk as he was prior to the small break in the match, which made it easier for Hanta to work with his own quirk. Snapping his arms to the side, he attempted to whip Jiroda out of the ring, but his opponent grabbed the tape and did the same, yanking each other forward instead of either being thrown to the side. As he fell to the ground, Hanta shot more tape at Jiroda's hands to stick them to the ground. His plan working for the moment, he picked himself up quickly to run at his opponent. Jumping over Jiroda, Hanta shot more tape at the kid's ankles and twisted his arms to bind the teen's ankles together. At that moment, the beastly teen broke his hands free and Hanta used his tape to grab them by the wrists and pulled on his tape to pull Jiroda's hands over his head. I want to say I got you at this point, man. Hanta let out a breath. I can keep binding you at this rate before you get out of the tape. Jiroda moved for only one more second before stopping and letting out his own breath. I agree. I concede and give this match to you. Shishida has withdrawn, Midnight announced. Zero wins and moves on to the next round. Hanta grinned as he knelt down to help Jiroda out of the tape. That was fun as hell, man. You'd have gotten me good if that counted as out of bounds. The 1B student nodded. That is true. You more than earned a win, however. Your agility is a honed skill I respect. I'm a slippery snake. The 1A student joked. Thankfully, you didn't disturb the metal too much. Recovery Girl spoke to Quill as she finished checking on his condition. You withdrew at the right time. I knew people would be on my case if I didn't. The teen commented. Their concern is good. You did give yourself a serious wound. Is there any news about that doctor who is supposed to get this stuff out of me? Quill asked with hope that his condition can be fixed sooner rather than later. The doctor shook her head. Sadly, no. No news in a while. Sounds about right. Quill sighed. I'll make sure to not mess it up more in the meantime. He moved to get up. As he left, Recovery Girl tried to offer him candy, and in a more polite way than last time, he declined the offer. Quill really didn't have a sweet tooth at all. Tenya walked back and forth as he held his phone up to his ear. The teen kept doing this in one of the tunnels of the stadium and continued until two of his classmates showed up. Whatcha doing, Ida? Toru asked as she and Shihai looked at Tenya. He first jumped slightly at the sudden communication, and then Tenya answered. Oh, I'm just calling my brother to see if he is seeing the sports festival. Oh yay, you have that older brother who's a pro hero. Shihai commented. Isn't he working in Hasu? He is, and also on duty right now. However, he said his investigation may not be as demanding of his time, so he may check out the festival. I wanted to see what he thinks so far. The teen explained excitedly. I mean, after you diced through a window from a different rooftop, he definitely had to think that was dope. The dark teen smirked at mentioning the event that he learned his classmate did. Yay, plus you're in the third event, Toru commented as she took a sip from her drink. That's definitely praiseworthy. Heck, everyone so far has shown insane stuff too. Shihai nodded along to what Toru said. Tenya had a smile. Indeed, I just wanted to hear my brother's thoughts. He is my role model after all. I wish I had siblings to have bonds like that with. Toru-ed, my sister is a brat. Shihai responded. It's not all role model-y. Well, sometimes you act like a butt, so maybe she is normal. The invisible girl commented as she began to walk away. Shihai blinked and looked at Tenya. Am I a butt? He got a shrug in response as the other teen continued to use his phone. The next two contestants, Shoto and Ibara, stood in their spots. The two weren't really known for conversations, but had shown the proper respect before moving to their spots and waiting for midnight to announce their match. As the two waited, they looked at each other silently, planning how to finish the match before their opponent could turn their quirk into a nuisance. Midnight loved the intensity and waved her hand to let present Mike know to call it. Begin. Both teens used their quirks simultaneously. Shoto sent out a massive wave of ice that began to cover the stage completely, and Ibara used her vines to make a wall in front of her and sent several into the ground. The ice around Ibara's vines froze the plants and began to spread, making Ibara have to cut off that hair and continue making the vines under the ground work on moving towards their goal unseen. Shoto couldn't see past the ice he had created, but assumed that Ibara had to be free somehow or else the match would be called. Granted, he could assume that no one knew how she was and that she was caught, but he had it set in his mind to not underestimate someone from 1A. A mindset that proved to be right as several vines burst from the ground around him and began to quickly ensnare the teen. He was tied down and looked around to figure out that Ibara definitely wasn't down yet if she pulled this. Ice shattered and Shoto saw the girl appear out of the home that was made. The vine-haired girl had used her strong vines to break her way through. He responded to her freeing herself by freeing himself as well. His left side ignited with fire, the flames quickly eating at the vines and freeing himself. Both teens moved at the same time again, sending out a massive wave of their quirks at each other. Shoto's ice proved superior, and actively pushed Ibara back a bit before she used some vines to steady herself. She made more vines go into the ice below her with the intent to grab Shoto again and hopefully throw him out of bounds before he could do anything about it. Shoto, however, had a new strategy as he moved on his ice. He used his ice to propel himself forward and released fire as he grabbed the vines that he believed were connected to Ibara still. With shock, the girl had to let go of her vine wall, disconnecting it from her head. She tried to make more to defend herself, but it was in vain as her opponent got through the first wall of her plants and shot ice at her legs, freezing her to the spot she stood. Shoto held up his ignited hand towards the girl. At this range I have the advantage given our quirks. Ibara nodded. That is true. Your quirk has two extremes ill-suited for my plants. I admit defeat. A second later, Midnight held up her hand. Shizaki has withdrawn. Todoroki moves on to the next round. Katsumi had begun to get antsy. 2 matches between now and her own match. She was far from nervous, she was impatient. She was ready to go and didn't want to wait any longer. Izuku looked at the girl who was basically vibrating in her seat and spoke. It's one more match. Not even 10 minutes. That's too long, Katsumi groaned. I need to smack someone now. That's not allowed. The cyclopic teen pointed out. You're not allowed. She responded. I'll leave then. Izuku made to stand up, intending to actually go get a drink, but was yanked into his seat by Katsumi. No, stay here, you doofus. The girl clutched his arm to stop him from getting up again. I can't even get a drink now. You didn't say that. Don't act like I knew it, you lazy ass. Do you want a drink? Izuku looked at the girl. Something to focus on before your match. Nah, I can chill. Izuku had a look of disbelief. I doubt that. The girl looked offended for all of a second. How rude. As my boyfriend, you should support and believe everything I say. So support me wanting to take naps all the time. No, double standards. These are 2 separate things, hence the doubling of the standards. I want to slap you, not your opponent anymore. I have 2 hands. I do too. The guy held up his hands. Katsumi had a flat look. Oh look, you can see. I still have 1 functioning eye. Izuku joked. Katsumi smacked Izuku lightly. Hey, don't joke about that. Izuku nodded in response. Has anyone seen Amane? Mina asked as she noticed the Batwing girl was nowhere to be seen. No, she kinda stormed off earlier after Shinso beat her. Suyu pointed out. Probably went to see Quill. Itsuka offered. She was worried when he quit the festival. Izuku stood up. I'll go find her. Really? Katsumi looked up at the guy, offering to do something. It's also an excuse to check on Quill. The emerald teen replied. Awa, do you have a man crush, Aizawa? Mina asked teasingly. He better not. I'll fight Quill, Katsumi commented. Izuku, with a flat expression, looked at his classmates before just walking away without a word. Tenya stood in his spot ready for the match to begin. He didn't get to connect with his brother over the phone yet, but he didn't let it bother him. He would win this match and have that to also show his brother on top of everything else he has done. His opponent, Juzo Honuki, was standing in his own spot and the other teen stood calmly. Tenya thought quickly about all the quirks he heard that 1B had, and knew this guy had to have one of the few he heard about Quill encountering against that Monoma guy. The ability to copy quirks was of course Monoma's. He saw it be used in Izuku's match, so he wanted to assume it was one Monoma had on hand in the last event, which means he can turn parts of his body into a drill, turn the ground soft, or have blades all over his body. All three would be difficult to deal with in a normal 1v1, except Tenya did have an ace up his sleeve. Recipro Burst. Since his usage of the move and speed at USJ, he had trained to build up that speed in a shorter span of time, so he can use that move right at the beginning of this match and potentially take Juzo out of the stage in record time. Nodded to his idea, he accepted doing just that. It would be a huge risk if he missed, but he knew he would do it. With his brother watching, he would show that he would follow those steps to being a pro hero that Tensei had also walked. Ready, kiddos? Midnight asked, getting 2 kids before she raised her hand for Hazashi to see. Begin. Present. Mike announced the beginning of the match. Instantly, the sound of booming engines roared across the stadium and Tenya disappeared in a flash. The teen had flashed across the stage to slam a kick into Juzo and send the teen flying. Recipro Burst, the teen shouted as he skidded to a stop right next to the line marking out of bounds. Everyone gawked at the scene. Tenya had ended the match in barely a second. Juzo had been knocked cleanly out of bounds and was lying on the ground staring at the sky in shock. In a stunning move, Ada put Honuki out of bounds within a second of the match starting. Ada moves on to the next round, Midnight announced. Tenya sat still while his engines stalled, needing to fix themselves after his move. He had a smile, however, as he was sure his brother would be proud of that display. Quill walked farther up the tunnels to find his way to where his class was sitting, and walked into a hall where Aela was oddly sitting on the ground against a wall with her knees brought up to her head and her wings hiding her from sight for the most part. Hey, Amen, the quilled teen said as he walked closer. What are you doing here? I'm not blessed. The girl mumbled back. I don't want to talk about it. Quill raised an eyebrow. What? Aela looked up and realized it was Quill. Wiping her eyes, she hid back behind her wings and knees. Oh, it's you. It's nothing. I'm fine. Yano, as someone who frequently uses that lie, you're terrible at using it. Quill dropped down next to her on the ground. You don't gotta tell me, but you aren't gonna get away with lying about being fine. He waited for her to respond and heard the girl make a sniffling sound, confirming for sure that she had been crying. He didn't get a response, so he opted to speak again. I hate to ask how your match went at this point. He forced a chuckle, feeling awkward around other people being sad. Emotions were never his strong suit anyways, except for anger, that is. That comment got Aela to stop crying for a second as she looked at Quill in disbelief, which made her also let out a light laugh at the awkward expression he had. You're horrible at being a comfort. I mean, yeah, he wasn't even going to act like it wasn't a fact. So what's bumming you out? Being blessed? The girl was quiet for a second, turning to look down so her hair hid her face from view. I'm not blessed. I'm a curse. Before I even try to get into that bit, what's causing this? That jerk who Bakugo wanted to fit because of Aizawa. That insomniac-looking twig. Quill asked. Oh yeah, he replaced me, didn't he? What? Did he beat you? Aela nodded. I don't know how. He insulted you and I wanted to yell at him, but then I was suddenly outside the stage. I was eliminated before I could use any of the training you helped me with. He then said I had blessed quirk in life and I haven't. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but if you do want to, I am right here. Quill already knew how hard life can be and wasn't going to pressure the girl. I killed my mom, Aela whispered so quietly that only Quill could hear her, even though they were the only two in the hall. When I was born, my wings made my birth give her complications that made her die the day I was born. My father hated me because of it. I was treated like a monster because of my wings, and I grew up in a part of Japan where mutant quirks were already treated poorly. My childhood was a curse. The girl left out how the abuse led her to not question anything when Akui held out a hand to her with the offer of justice against the people who tormented her. You can't be blamed for your mother's death. Quill spoke after a second. It was a tragedy, yeah, and if anyone is the curse or monster or whatever, it's your asshole of a father. He was quiet for a second before making an offer. Hell, I can go kick his ass if you want. Aela laughed again. Thanks for the offer, but you can't. Sure I can. I already killed a guy on UA grounds. Quill laughed at his own terrible joke. Just point me in his direction. No, I mean you literally can't. He died a few years ago because he tried to mess with a villain. She was never going to reveal that she meant herself. Shame, I'd like to kick his ass for messing with you. Why? That's a dumb question. We're friends, so obviously a tone who messes with you is gonna have me kick their ass. Like how I expect you to kick the ass of anyone messing with me. Quill explained. I couldn't though. That guy said you don't deserve to be here, and that you should be in jail. He was basically calling you a villain. Quill thought for a second. I mean, yeah, he's a jackass, but what he said about me is irrelevant. He upset you and that's more important. Aela didn't respond except for making a sighing sound followed by more sniffling, still crying over remembering her past. After a minute, Quill realized something. Wait, you were harassed for those wings and I have been calling you baddie this whole time. It doesn't matter. Aela wiped her eyes again. Ooh, yes, it does. You had a bad time due to those things, and I have been calling you directly by those things. I mean, you also called me a few times. Without thinking, Quill responded. I mean, when class first started, you did kinda act like a. Aela gave him a flat stare. You are terrible at comforting people. Never claimed to be good. Yay, you kinda do act like an ass. Aela tried to make a joke. Yay, don't exactly like having people close to me, I guess. The guy responded. Then why are you here? I already said we're friends, you idiot. The guy responded. After USJ, you are a friend. So while I can't really do anything about your past, I am here in the present, and so are all the other idiots in 1A. None of them can really erase things that happened in the past, but they're all enough to make the present seem good, right? Aela was silent for a minute. She thought about 1A and everything that had happened so far. It really didn't fix the last at all, but it made the last few weeks better than all those years by far. I guess those idiots are good. So how about we go back to those idiots? Zero can say some dumb thing that you call him a dipshit for. Yashi will be loud and excited about something small, and Bakugo will be trying to flirt with Aizawa while he is trying to nap. Sound good? The girl nodded and moved to actually get up. That sounds good. Nice. The quilled teen stood up. Now tell me you know the way up to the seats from here, because I really don't. The girl had a flat expression at that statement and pointed behind her. It's that way. I came from that way. The teen began to question if he ripped out his sense of direction with his long. And you called the rest of the class idiots. Follow me, fellow idiot. The girl began to go up the tunnels and Quill followed. Around a corner from where they were, Izuku had a smile as he saw the two leave. He had gotten there right after Quill and let him do the talking, and it showed to be the right move. He'd let them walk back to the class in peace and not tell anyone about what he heard. At the same time, Quill found Aela in the tunnels. The next match after Tenya's was about to begin. Both Itsuka and Mashiro stood far closer to each other than the rest of the contestants, both requesting it as martial arts users, and Midnight, finding it adorable, made her agree to it. Both of them waited patiently for the match to begin. And once Hisashi announced the start, both of them jumped into their fighting styles. Both opened with a signature of their styles, Itsuka going for a palm strike with her enlarged hand, and Mashiro spinning to attempt a side strike at the girl with his tail. Both of them blocked the strike of the other, and moved for a second strike that also ended up getting blocked. This repeated for a third, fourth, and fifth time. After that, both stopped using their natural styles and opted for other styles, and both jumped into attacks through that style. The two end up clashing attacks and sending each other to their knees. As they both caught themselves, they looked up at each other with a grin and began to laugh. This is possibly the best match I have ever had, Mashiro stated as he stood back up. Yes, you are reading my moves as soon as I do them, Itsuka beamed. The two kept their grins as they moved into new attacks similar to their original attacks, and blocked the other's attack with their own that was twisted to block the attacks. The two stumbled from the repeated clash and grinned again. This is going to get repetitive, isn't it? Mashiro asked. I wouldn't mind that, Itsuka admitted. The tailed teen nodded. I would enjoy it actually. At that, the two once again moved into attacks, and both pulled feints. Mashiro faked an attack with his tail but actually intended to strike with his right fist, the attack going at Itsuka's left side. Itsuka faked a downward strike with her own right fist, but actually brought her left up for an uppercut. Only Itsuka's attack landed, due to her enlargement quirk that increased her range. The strike threw Mashiro back a bit and he stumbled before taking a knee and holding his side. Damn, that definitely had weight behind it. The teen breathed out. Itsuka remembered how the guy broke half the bones in his body at USJ and panicked that she made the wound get worse. Are you okay? Yeah, just winded. Mashiro stood up and held his hands in his natural style. I'm still good to go. The girl held up her hands. Okay. The two rushed back at each other, Mashiro's movement noticeably affected by his side. As they both went in for strikes, Itsuka saw a mistake she knew he would not have made a moment ago and focused on it, hitting him in the other side of his midsection. Mashiro took the hit almost the same as the other, except he stayed standing. I guess I'm getting sloppy now. Your side is actively hurt, the girl pointed out. Don't try to do what Quill did the other week and act like you aren't hurt. Mashiro let out a sigh. Come on, you have been treating me like I'm some fragile item ever since USJ. You broke half the bones in your body. The girl spoke a bit louder than she meant to. You can't brush it off like that didn't happen. Mashiro took a breath before responding. Kendo, I know I was injured. My style is adapting to cover that. Trust me and continue the match. He put his arms back up and reaffirmed his style. Itsuka gave the teen a look and then realized who she was close to acting like. Katsumi. She was being a bit controlling and overly worried over a guy who injured himself. Did that mean she liked Mashiro? Not even half a second after asking that, she knew the answer was a yes. It also explained why she was worried he might injure himself again. She had to treat him with respect though, instead of like a fragile object. The girl sighed and held up her hands. Okay, I trust you. Mashiro smiled and was the one to move forward first. He got close enough to spur Izuku into attacking first and used his tail to catch the attack, the only limb of his that can withstand the strength of her quirk, and struck her in the with his palm. The girl took a step back and looked at Mashiro with a small smile. Okay, I doubted you and may have been wrong. The tailed teen had a grin. Told you. Izuku moved forward and blocked a swing of Mashiro's tail, actively grabbing the limb as she blocked it. Blocking a strike from his fist, she grabbed that limb as well and used the point she was holding on the teen to twist him to a position that he couldn't do much from. I got you now, the girl stated. Mashiro weighed his options and decided he didn't feel like messing with his ribs being hurt too much. Yay, I'm lost. Ajiro admits defeat. Kendo wins and moves on to the next round. Midnight clapped her hands, moving the match. It was now time. Katsumi had practically jumped from her seat in the stands all the way down to the stage as she waited for her own opponent to hurry up, the girl bouncing up and down on her feet, not actively having her shoes on due to not wanting to break them with her quirk. Her opponent finally showed up, and it was the insect-looking dude from 1B, but she didn't really care. She saw what Tenya did and knew she had to match that. Beat the match in seconds and flex one for all also. You kiddos ready? Midnight looked mostly at Katsumi, seeing the kid vibrate with enthusiasm where she stood. Yep, the Kamakiri guy responded. I'm doing this in less than 2 seconds. Katsumi clapped her hands as she declared that. Let's do this. That's the right energy present, Mike shouted over the mic. Begin. In a similar fashion to Tenya, the girl disappeared like a blur, the sound of explosions in her wake. She used most of OFA that she could handle, 5%, alongside her quirk and blasted over to Kamakiri and used another explosion's force to throw the guy off the stage before he could blink. The girl stood confidently where Kamakiri just was and pointed at the teen. Not even 2 seconds. Kamakiri, like Juzo before him, was on the ground staring at the sky in bewilderment. By forcing her opponent Kamakiri out of bounds in record time, Bakugo moves on to the next round. Midnight clapped her hands. The second set of matches will begin after a small break. I am the greatest, Katsumi shouted through her adrenaline she gained from using OFA, even from the 1 second she did use it. The girl had a crazy laugh as she ran back to her class to brag to Izuku. Kamakiri stared at the sky still, the flash of the girl appearing before him and smacking him out of bounds instantly stuck in his head. He half-heartedly said something he didn't even really process before saying it. I think I'm in love. Izuku walked into the stands just as Katsumi's match started, and didn't look surprised at all when the girl used one for all and instantly finished the match. By the time he moved to his seat, the girl had used her quirk to get back up to the stands. Did you see that? The girl asked as she jumped over the railing and landed in front of Izuku. Not even 2 whole seconds. Eat it, nerd. She guided that nerd to Tenya, who she tried to point at. Where's the nerd? Ada. Toru assumed that Tenya was the nerd in question. He went into the tunnel to try to call his brother again. Isn't his brother busy on patrol or something? Hanta asked. I have to brag about being faster. Katsumi went to go bother Tenya, grabbing Izuku's arm and taking him with her. Winners follow me, she referred to everyone in 1A who won a match in the third event. As she entered the tunnel, the girl saw Tenya walking back and forth. Hey nerd, I beat your speed. Tenya looked away from his phone. I saw. That was some incredible power behind your explosions. The girl beamed. Damn right, I only used it like that because your one-hit knockout inspired me to prove I am better. I was swinging around like a hooligan. Hanta, who actually followed out of amusement, commented. You are a hooligan. Quill commented as he and Azula walked up the tunnel, just now getting back to the class. Awa, Big Red, you're making me blush. Hanta jokingly waved his hand in the quilled teen's direction. Hey you, how's your lung? Katsumi pointed at the redhead. A nuisance but not shitty. Good, now I have to go back to challenging the nerd. Katsumi saw Azula looking like she had cried and opted to not actually say anything about it yet, although she did plan to punch Quill in his lung if he was the reason for it. She pointed back at Tenya. We're both the fast people here, so I am challenging you to a speed competition during the next few rounds. Tenya was about to respond, but his phone went off, the teen receiving a call. He held up a hand to ask for silence from the others and pulled his phone up. He saw the number as his mother's and felt happiness, eager to hear what his parents thought of his match. Hello, Mother. Tenya had a smile as he spoke. How did you? Tenya, his mother was heard sobbing hard, causing Tenya's smile to disappear and be replaced with worry. The other teens were able to hear his mother as well, thanks to Tenya's phone volume being decently high and the tunnel echoing the voice. Something horrible has happened, his mother then said, something that shattered Tenya to the core. The other teens watched as Tenya gained a look of shock and dropped his phone, it slipping out of his hand. Tenya lost control of his legs, but Quill, being the closest, caught him. Tenya couldn't believe it, wouldn't believe it. Ingenium, his brother Tensei, was found slaughtered by the hero killer Stain. His older brother, the man he aspired to be like, was murdered.